Tonight, a special edition of World News Tonight. The deadly terror attacks in Brussels, at the airport, and in the subway. The Americans caught in the middle of it all. 3 deadly explosions rocking the city. Tonight, ISIS reportedly claiming responsibility. Dozens killed, more than 200 hurt.
This is a special edition of World News Tonight with David Muir. Brussels under attack.
Good evening on this Tuesday night as this country and the world now reacts to another series of deadly terror attacks. Tonight, the urgent manhunt right now after the city of Brussels is rocked with multiple explosions at the airport and then in the subway. Americans among the injured, among those trapped, and you'll hear from them tonight. Authorities now putting out this image. 3 suspects at the airport, 2 of them believed to be the suicide bombers. The third man on the right, they believe, is on the run at this hour. We will analyze what else is in that photo. The first blasts at the airport, afterwards smoke and dust, the injured crying for help. And then on the subway in the center of the city, the next explosion, a subway car incinerated at rush hour. You can hear the cries, passengers running in the dark. Tonight, at least 31 killed, more than 200 injured. We have team coverage here, and we begin with ABC's Alex Marquardt on the scene, taking us through the terrifying moments and the investigation now.
Tonight, terror striking in the heart of Europe. Belgium's main airport, a smoky war zone. The city paralyzed. Belgian authorities believe they have the names of the attackers who hit at the height of rush hour.
Now at rush hour, instead, as you can see, it's eerily empty, shut down by police.
The threat level here raised to the highest level. Police now looking for this man, the 3rd suspected bomber.
Just a horrific day, and Alex Marquardt joins us now live from Brussels near the site of the metro bombing. And Alex, the U.S. Embassy tonight now telling Americans in Brussels to shelter in place.
That's right, David. That warning going out this afternoon indicating that Belgian authorities fear what they call a serious and imminent attack. Most of the public transportation system here in Brussels is still shut down. So much of this city tonight emotionally and physically paralyzed. David?
And the world stands with that city tonight. Alex, thank you. We're going to turn next here to the urgent manhunt right now on the trail of that terror, ISIS taking responsibility. Investigators now lasering in on clues in this surveillance image. We showed it to you at the top of the broadcast. 2 of the suspects wearing gloves. The other man on the right there is not, and they are searching for him tonight. ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross now. Brian Ross with us now. And Brian, your sources telling you that this is all part of an effort by ISIS to sort of direct these sleeper cells all across Europe?
That's right, David. For at least the last year, ISIS has been organizing fighters by nationality and language and sending them to attack their home countries. Among the top targets, Belgium and France, of course, along with Germany, Britain, and the U.S.
All right, Brian Ross with us tonight. Brian, thank you. And Brian, as you know, we're also hearing this evening from the Americans who were trapped in the middle of the terror today. I spoke with Brian Carroll from Washington, D.C., who was on that train. He helped pry the door open after the explosion. Can you just describe for me the moment when you knew something had gone wrong?
Yeah, it was almost immediately. As we're pulling into the Malbec station, there was a massive explosion. The lights went out, the power went out on the train, everyone fell to the ground. It was clear to me, at least, that this was a terrorist attack.
There was no question in your mind that you had to pry those doors open?
Yeah, I saw other people going for the door. It wasn't opening. One of the other passengers went to try and open the door, and it was difficult. And so collectively, we all manually forced open the door. We just decided to go for it and get off the train and try and find safety.
Can you take us through that moment, how the other people on the train reacted when you all realized that this was an explosion on the train?
Yeah, I mean, it was really like a, sort of loud, really a loud sound. And immediately, everyone started screaming and people dropped to the floor. People were crying, holding each other in fear. It was a nightmare. It was exactly the worst nightmare you could imagine.
Have you had a chance to talk to your family back home?
Yeah, of course. I sent them multiple messages, and we've spoken already. So, of course, they're very relieved to know that I'm safe.
Well, Brian, I know you don't look at it this way, but it was brave work getting those doors open to help everyone out, and we're glad you're okay.
It was definitely a collective effort, and it wasn't my first instinct, but we got the door open, and everyone, at least in my train, got out.
And we talked with Shireen Naragi, who was in the airport with her boyfriend at the ticket counter.
He jumped over me and like shielded me from the second blast. The lady had my passport. She was checking me in. He pushed me under there, and she was such a sweetheart. I wish I could remember her name, American Airlines attendant. She pulled me under there and pulled me underneath her station, and we kind of like both like bunkered down there, and Jeff, like my boyfriend, was right in between.
We're glad that you and your boyfriend Jeff are okay, and of course the ticketing agent who consoled you behind that counter.
I wish I got her name. God bless her. I hope she's okay.
She told me she's determined to find that American Airlines agent who consoled her. In the meantime, we turn next here to the high-stakes raid on a Brussels neighborhood that authorities now say may have set today's attacks in motion. It was just 4 days ago here we reported on heavily armed police forces setting off this series of explosions here, the smoke rising into the air, and then several arrests, including the most wanted man after the Paris attacks, captured after a 4-month manhunt. Authorities interrogating him, and what he told police led them to warn that another attack was imminent. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Terry Moran now on what might have ignited the terror attacks today.
Tonight, the hunt for accomplices triggering raids across Brussels. Guns drawn, a drone overhead, police move in using a camera on a stick to peer into an upper floor apartment.
The raids have targeted this neighborhood just a mile or so from downtown. This whole block has been cordoned off, and they have found yet another explosive device packed with nails, chemical products, and an ISIS flag. And
Terry Moran joins us live from Brussels as well tonight. And Terry, it would appear these attackers might have been right under their nose in neighborhoods that had been searched and investigated already. Why has it been so difficult to get these guys before the attacks?
You know, David, Belgium has long been seen as a weak link in European counterterrorism. It's a divided country, divided by language, divided by politics, and immigrant communities are not well assimilated. Every country has cracks and crevices where criminals and terrorists can hide. Here, those cracks are a mile wide. David?
Terry Moran in Belgium for us. Terry, thank you. Tonight in Brussels, powerful images catching the world's attention. People sharing words of comfort written in chalk. A police officer lighting a candle. And tonight, the colors of the Belgian flag as the world now honors the victims. And here in New York City, the World Trade Center to be lit in the colors of the Belgian flag later tonight. For many, this hour-long edition continues in a moment. For the rest of you, good night. Our special one-hour edition of World News Tonight continues right now with new reporting at this hour. This half hour, the stories behind the American victims, why they were there, what are their injuries, the security here at home, the debate, what more can be done at airports, and the war on ISIS. Martha Raddatz tonight, and the images from the American aircraft carrier striking ISIS targets. Are we gaining any ground? And the outpouring of support tonight. The images from Belgium to America lit up in their honor.
From ABC News, this is a special edition of World News Tonight with David Muir. Brussels under attack.
Welcome back to our special edition of World News Tonight of the terror attacks in Brussels, and tonight the casualties mounting after terror attacks at the airport and on a subway car in the heart of that city. Raids across the city all day long, police with weapons drawn on a rooftop there. This after powerful blasts at the airport, right where families had dropped off loved ones waiting in line for their tickets. An explosion on a subway car during the morning rush hour, a scene of chaos right there in the dark. ABC's Alex Marquardt in Brussels this evening, taking us through the attacks and the new focus at this hour on the surveillance video now. And Alex Marquardt with us live again this half hour from Brussels. Alex, you told us at 6:30 the city largely shut down tonight. What do we know about the subway systems there and the airport, of course, which had been locked down today for quite some time?
David, the Belgian authorities are trying as hard as they can to get the public transportation system back up and running. The metro system tonight still shut down. The airport tomorrow will still be shut down, as will schools all across Brussels. Parents keeping their kids at home. David?
Alex Marquardt leading off this half hour as well. Alex, thank you. And as we reported earlier, the terror attacks in Brussels may have been triggered by the capture of the most wanted man in Europe. It was Friday, we showed you, heavily armed police nabbing the final suspect in the Paris terror attacks, wounding him in the raid, and then interrogating him. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Terry Moran showing us this half hour how easy it is to get through the city. He didn't find much security and was able to get right to the center of Brussels. He's back with us live tonight. And Terry, this has been one of the chief criticisms there, that it's very easy to get around that city and in and out of that country.
It is easy to get around this city, even given these attacks today, and getting in and out of this country in Europe without borders is also very, very easy. The problem for Belgium is that they are way behind the terrorists. There are so many safe houses and depots and networks that hid Salah Abdeslam, who was arrested last Friday, as you point out, for 4 months right under the noses of Belgian authorities, that it shows just far behind the authorities here are. They know they've got their work cut out for them. They've toughened the laws. They're trying to crack down. But right now, people here have a much more urgent question, given the weakness of the government. What's coming next? David?
All right, Terry Moran with us live from Belgium tonight. Terry, thank you. And among the survivors I spoke with today, a pregnant woman who was in the airport, her husband lying on top of her moments after the explosions. I spoke with her a short time ago.
Debris started falling on us.
Pieces of the ceiling were falling down on you?
We thought the roof is going to collapse.
You're pregnant. This is your first pregnancy, and it was your husband's instinct to try to protect you from the falling debris?
Yeah, so he immediately ran to me, tried to cover me because he thought that there's probably still gunmen around.
Can you describe for me the scene inside for the other passengers who were there? How terrifying this was?
Yeah, it's because everybody was running in different directions. Each single person running in different directions, sobbing.
We're really glad that you're okay and that that baby's okay.
Thank you so much. Our heart really goes out to all the other people who've been injured even slightly.
Sneha Mehta talking with us just a short time ago. Early in her pregnancy, she and her husband okay tonight. We're going to turn to the Americans injured in the attacks in Brussels. 3 Mormon missionaries from Utah among them. They were there at the airport to see someone off, and tonight all 3 are at hospitals. One of them already surviving a close call at another terror attack, the Boston bombings. Next to the high anxiety here at home and a more visible show of force tonight. In Times Square here in New York City, armed police officers standing guard at this hour. ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas now on the lone wolves. We asked the FBI how many of them are being monitored right now here in the U.S.
So tonight, U.S. law enforcement officials are poring over the recent intelligence, looking for any sign of a threat here at home. And in some cases, some of the suspects on the FBI's radar may have agents knocking on their doors to warn them they're being watched. David?
Pierre Thomas live at our Washington bureau tonight. Pierre, thank you. I want to bring in Matt Olson, former director of the National Counterterrorism Center, who's also with us live tonight, Matt. And you heard what Pierre reported right there, that for 24-hour surveillance of some of these lone wolves, these suspects that they're watching around the United States, it could take perhaps dozens of agents. It almost sounds overwhelming.
Well, it is. I mean,
so what do you do, Matt, in the meantime? If you can't have 24-hour surveillance, which we all know is the reality here, how do you keep these attacks from happening? You know, many of these suspects, they believe, were right there in the neighborhoods that had been searched in Belgium.
You know, the key, David, is good intelligence. You need to have surveillance. You need to have informants. The best way to stop an attack like this is to know about it before it happens. It's very difficult to protect vulnerable targets like a train station.
Just difficult pictures to look at there from the subway too today. Matt, our thanks to you as well as we continue with these bombings at the Brussels airport. It rattled nerves here at home. At the Orlando airport today, this plane arriving from Brussels, we told you earlier, was met by police cars, everyone going through an extra security check because of where that jet was coming from. But today's bombings taking place outside the secure area in Brussels, where families were leaving off their loved ones and saying goodbye. They were simply lining up for their tickets.
Homeland Security announced today that TSA will tighten security, but TSA is not responsible for the overall security at airports, just these checkpoints. Interestingly, the head of TSA was actually landing in Brussels around the time of the explosions this morning, David. He was taken to a secure area.
Yeah, that's just incredible. And of course, the larger question looming is what can you do at ticket counters? You can't secure everything at the airport. David, thank you for that report tonight. And of course, ISIS taking responsibility for the terror attacks today as the military battle against ISIS rages on. U.S. and coalition forces taking on the Islamic State at its roots. American fighter jets taking off around the clock, targeting sites in 4 countries now. Finally tonight here on this hour-long edition of World News Tonight, the global show of solidarity in the wake of the Brussels attacks. The World Trade Center lit up tonight, and the simple words going viral across the world. Here's ABC's David Wright.
Tonight at the Eiffel Tower in Paris, strangers united, comforting each other, deploring an act of hate. David Wright, ABC News, Washington.
The world tonight honoring the victims. I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night. Tonight, breaking news from Belgium, the urgent manhunt right now, and a major new discovery here. The all-out search at this hour, police in masks and full body armor, searching for the man in the hat in that surveillance image from the Brussels airport. There's also news tonight about two suspects, one at the airport, the other in the subway. Authorities say both brothers and both blowing themselves up. And the startling reveal, how many times did authorities send warnings about these two men? Also tonight, the computer discovered in the trash, the revealing message from one of the suspects. And the faces of the missing, Americans among them, the families still hoping to find their loved ones, the brother and sister. And we go to find the young American who pried open that subway door to help so many escape after that bomb.
This is a special edition of World News Tonight with David Muir, reporting tonight from Brussels.
And good evening tonight from Brussels. And as we come on the air here, this city remains on its highest alert. Security everywhere we went today. After the devastating attacks, there are fears here. There could be more. The U.S. State Department tonight with an extraordinary warning telling American travelers that terror groups are planning attacks all across Europe, warning Americans to be vigilant. Also tonight, we are learning some of the identities of the men who attacked this city. One of them, authorities now confirm, was the master bomb maker here and in Paris. Another man in this photo, a suicide bomber at the airport, had a brother who walked into that subway here and did the same thing. And now the urgent manhunt tonight for the man on the right with the hat who got away. Tonight, what investigators have also found in this building where the suspects were believed to be hiding, and the message on the computer that was found in the trash. ABC's Alex Marquardt leads us off here in Belgium tonight.
So, David, it appears from this message that the attackers believed the net was tightening around them, that the authorities were closing in, and that they had to act now to pull off these horrific attacks. David?
Alex Marquardt leading us off. Alex, thank you. And with that discovery, that message found on a computer, and that connection tonight between the master bomb maker here in Brussels to Paris, the big question that remains, how many people are in that terror cell and how many are still alive tonight, perhaps planning the next attack? Here's our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross now.
And David, officials tell us that even with those two men on the loose, they believe the Brussels terror cell has already carried out its mission, now out of people and out of bombs. The concern now is that there are other terror cells across Europe still covert and still actively plotting. David?
Brian, thank you. And as you know, authorities remain on the scene in that neighborhood where they discovered that computer, but they also discovered something else in that apartment building, a cache of weaponry and explosives. Tonight, our chief foreign correspondent, Terry Moran, inside that building, knocking on the apartment next door, asking the man who lives there if he had any idea what was happening on the other side of that wall. Here's what he told Terry.
A bomb factory in the middle of this Brussels neighborhood, and people have a lot of questions. How could the landlord not know? How could the government, which checks every rental, not follow up? It seems almost incredible that no one saw anything. The neighbors tell us the suspected attackers were only up in that apartment for a few weeks. They moved in, they built their bombs, and they killed. And the urgent question now is, how many more hideouts like that are there here? David?
Terry Moran here in Brussels with me tonight. Terry, thank you. And next to the heartbreak of the families of the Americans hurt or still missing tonight. The State Department saying they don't have names or an official list of the missing, but there are many families still waiting, still hoping. Tonight here, the stories behind those faces and the American survivors tonight, including the young man from Washington, D.C., who was in the subway during the explosion and who helped pry open that door so everyone could escape. Tonight, we found him right here in Brussels, taking us back into the subway, where they searched our coats. He told me he has never seen security like this here before. Ashley Bruggeman running straight into her family's arms late today in New York, still wearing the same clothes she had on when she fled the Brussels airport. Gatane Powell's from Houston, Texas, getting word that her 21-year-old stepson, Gatan, has been found. He woke up in a hotel lobby turned triage center with no memory of the subway attack. Heroic stories of survival emerging from Brussels. At the airport, American physician Laura Billet triaging the injured with the help of her friend Laura Harper. Former Marist College and Oakland University basketball player Sebastian Balan going into surgery for his left leg after the blast reportedly threw him 65 feet. And there was NBA Hall of Fame star Dikembe Mutombo. He was asleep in the passenger lounge when the first bomb went off at the airport. He fled to safety, posting on Facebook now, "God is good." More than 100 others wounded there, some 12 Americans, including 3 Mormon missionaries, Richard Norby, Mason Wells, and Joseph Empey. Joseph's family grateful he's alive, while so many others still search tonight. New York City natives Alexander and Sasha Pinchowski feared missing. The brother and sister called their family from the airport Tuesday, but the phone line went dead after the explosion. Alexander, engaged to be married, his fiance's father, on his way to Brussels to search. And tonight, the first face of the confirmed dead here. Adelma Tapia Ruiz on her way to New York to visit family, her husband and twin daughters at the airport to see her off. An hour later, after that airport attack, the other explosions 7 miles away on that crowded subway. We went to find the young American, Brian Carroll, from Washington, D.C., who pried open the door on that subway after the explosion. He told us he knew about the airport attack that morning and even debated whether or not to get on that subway. He did.
As we were arriving to the platform, there was a massive explosion. We heard it, we felt it in the train. To me, immediately I knew it was a terrorist attack. That's exactly what it felt like. It's crazy to believe that I was just a few cars down, and I'm very, very thankful and lucky to have gotten out alive.
You and some of the other people on the train pried the door open.
That's right.
We went down into that subway today before it closed early. Armed guards making us open our coats before we could board. And on the subway, Brian shows us where he was standing, just a couple of cars away from the bomb. Brian saying he's thankful he and the others in that train car had the instincts to pry the door open to get everybody out. When we come back here, we'll take you out into this memorial right here behind us, these candles, the messages, and the children who gathered here, the hope here in Brussels. Finally tonight here from Brussels, the light in the darkness. The parents determined to bring their children right here behind me to help them heal, to help this city heal. Tonight, the number of candles growing in this city in honor of the victims here. Parents trying to explain it to their children, their little hands spreading the light. We met Ingeborg Tolinar. Tell me why it was important to bring your children here today.
I found it very important to bring them here to think about it and to make them reflect on it.
Her 2 daughters and son kneeling, and they show me their candles. Her oldest daughter, Valentine, is 10. And did you light a candle?
Do you catch the sound? Yes.
People of all ages here, all day long, lighting the candles in honor of those who were lost. These boys right here, these 2 brothers. And you can see the colors of the Belgian flag all over this city, all over the world. This hashtag, Pray for Brussels. And standing beside the candles, we meet Cora Atala. She was in Paris for the terror attacks there and now lives here in Brussels. So you're here to honor the victims.
And because I consider myself very lucky to be alive for the second time.
That memorial growing by the hour here. Thank you for watching here on a Wednesday night. I'm David Muir in Brussels, and of course, I hope to see you right back here tomorrow night. Good night.
This is a special edition of World News Tonight with David Muir, reporting tonight from Brussels.
Good evening. As we come on the air tonight, several breaking developments after the terror attacks here in Brussels. We have just learned that U.S. authorities now believe they know that mystery suspect in that airport surveillance, the man at the center of an urgent international hunt. Our justice team standing by with that tonight. But this evening, investigators here also revealing something else, a possible nuclear plot. We have new reporting tonight on 2 of the bombing suspects, 2 brothers. Authorities say they were secretly recording a top nuclear scientist. They had conducted hours of their own surveillance. And the central concern tonight, how many suspects in this terror cell are still alive? And what were their nuclear ambitions? ABC's Alex Marquardt here in Brussels, leading us off. And Alex Marquardt joins me live from right here in Brussels tonight. Alex, we're also learning while we're on the air tonight that French authorities have stopped what they believe could be another plot outside Paris.
That's right, David. There's an ongoing police operation just outside of Paris. The police have said they've arrested a man who was connected to a terrorist group. And just moments ago, the French Interior Minister saying they foiled a terror plot which was at an advanced stage. Europe tonight grappling with its new reality. David.
All right, Alex, our thanks to you. And now to that mystery suspect seen in that airport surveillance. Tonight, U.S. authorities believe they know who he is. So let's get right to our senior justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, who's been working his sources late today. Pierre, what have you learned?
David, tonight, one official tells me the prospect of more attacks in Europe is quite high.
Pierre Thomas live in our Washington bureau. Pierre, thank you. And this evening we have stunning new images showing the power of those bombs and what the victims went through. Nearly 300 were hurt by flying shrapnel and debris, and doctors tonight revealing to authorities here some of the bomb fragments pulled from the survivors in area hospitals, chunks of twisted metal, and so many victims are still recovering. And this evening, our interview with the basketball player who was headed back to the United States when he was hit by those explosions, his young family back in Michigan. The former college basketball player was a star for Oakland. Tonight, what he told us from his hospital bed. This is the image of Sebastian Boulin that went all over the world. Hit by the explosion in the airport, thrown to the floor, and then pieces of the ceiling pouring down on the basketball player. He told me all he could think of were his wife and 2 young daughters back in Michigan.
What did you see? I just saw, I remember seeing an explosion, the first explosion near the pharmacy at the airport. And I turned my head and I saw these people running, and something hit me, like I got shot in the hip, and I fell to the ground. And my leg was just completely severed. You know, I was just that way. I was going that way, and I was just in shock, and I couldn't move anything. What did it sound like? It happened so quick. It's just a deafening. It's just, you know, it's just and then the ceiling starts falling, and so you don't really know what's happening. Like 6 firemen picked me up and then wheeled me all the way back to emergency area. And when I got there, I remember seeing 2 little kids to my right, you know, and the little hands were up in the air, and then the whole time I was just I told myself, I'm gonna make it. And when I got in that ambulance, then I knew I was good. In the moment, you're thinking about your wife and your kids? Yeah. Sorry about that. I just want my girls to grow up without a dad, you know. It's funny how many things you think of, you know. Like I started playing tennis with my 7-year-old. She's a hell of a tennis player, and so I was like, man, you know, I gotta get through this, you know, because she needs her coach. It may seem so trivial, but it gets you through those moments, you know. And then
so you're thinking about how you have to get home to coach her.
Yeah.
We showed him the image seen by so many.
You've seen that? No, I haven't seen it. I was just trying to, I guess, limit my moves as much as possible. I was in a pool of blood. I mean, it was blood everywhere. So I didn't want to lose it. And you're looking at your leg and you're thinking, how am I still alive?
His wife on his way to Brussels tonight. Our coverage of the Brussels terror attack. We thank you for watching here on a Thursday night. I'm David Muir. I hope to see you tomorrow night back from New York. Until then, good night.